Um, Actually, I'm not really savvy with PowerPoint or Zoom or anything like that.
Okay.
So I'm gonna talk off the cuff. And yeah, I appreciate Marty giving me the opportunity to talk to people. And really, he kind of threw that out, life work balance. And really, life work balance for me has been easy. I love the game of lacrosse, and my family and my wife has always supported me in that. And so for that, that was easy. And that's all I got. No, I'm just kidding. So, um, yeah, it's always been a passion of mine, lacrosse. And I know there's a lot of guys in the association that lacrosse is a passion of theirs. And that's what makes it so much fun in refereeing with the guys and the camaraderie that comes with that. So I actually started playing lacrosse in 1972 in Annapolis, Maryland, and played there a couple of years. My dad was in the Navy. We transferred into Northern Virginia. And so I played at Woodson High School in the 70s. A lot of people think the first team was in the 90s, but it was actually in the 70s. A lot of kids came out of Annandale Lacrosse Club. Steve Price, half went to Lake Braddock, half went to Woodson. So that was exciting times back then. Then I got the opportunity to play at Bowling Green on the last team that Bowling Green had, and then finished up at Virginia Tech. And then, so I've been a player, a coach, and a referee. Coaching, I was fortunate to be able to start the McLean High School Lacrosse Club. And we just had our 40th reunion. It was delayed because of COVID. And it was actually supposed to be like celebration of 40 years of lacrosse. And it was neat in that a lot of the original players came to the game. Ho, that still plays. We had Pat DeConcini, who flew in from Arizona. Kevin Mank flew in from California. So that was kind of neat. I only did that for a year, then finished up actually at Virginia Tech. And Earl Brewer was my replacement there. So McLean was in good hands after I left, and that was nice. Then I got the opportunity. I was hired by the English Lacrosse Union to coach and play in London, England. And that was a great experience, and got to travel all through Europe and meet a lot of interesting people back in the 80s. So it turns out I was kind of going through some old things I had in my scrapbook and stuff, and I found the original 1986 roster. And that's when Chuck Hammer actually led the group. And there were 11 of us. And basically our meetings, we had about 3 meetings preseason. We'd grab a 6-pack, go to Chuck Hammer's house and read through the rule books while we had a few beers. And then I found some other rosters. So back in 1986, there were 11 officials. 1990, we had 22 officials. And that's when Scott Craig and Scott Gerritsen joined the group. 94, we were up to 36 officials. John DeDuro and Pete Stewart were officials by then. 96, we're up to 42 officials. Scott Price joined. 97, we had 55 officials. In 01, we had 82 officials, and that's when Marty became an official, Henry Jiggets. And Marty may have, I don't have all the years, so that's kind of the years that I do have. And I was just kind of running through to see what I had. And the last one I had was 02, and we were up to 96 officials. Peter Buchanan, Mike Lebat, and Jose Oliverio had joined the group by then. So we were really, really growing. But one thing that really jumps out at me is, we in 02, we had 96 officials. Today, we probably have 3 or 4 times as many games. And I think we may have less than 90 officials right now. So we really are short. And so every one of us really needs to try to get out there and recruit anybody and everybody that is involved in lacrosse to become an official, because, I know I'm not getting any younger. Some of the other guys are not getting any younger. We really need to get some younger guys out there and keep them as officials. So, that's one thing I'm trying to be more aware of. I'm even at some lineups telling kids, hey, we need officials. So think about joining next year, helping out with youth and things like that. So, and one of the funny stories back in the old days before we had Arbiter, My phone used to ring at 11 o'clock at night, and my wife would turn to me on the sofa and say, "Oh, that's Saint calling." And sure enough, it would be Paul Saint Germain, the predecessor to Marty, that was, calling to see if you could do a game the next day, kind of deal. And we used to always just kind of laugh about that. So I'm so glad there's Arbiter. I'm so glad you can block your schedule and put the schedule that fits your needs. And that's been a big help as far as life work balance. So, people within lacrosse and outside of lacrosse, they ask me like, why do I referee? And number one is I truly do love the game. I love playing. I remember as a kid just picking up a ball and running down the field and setting up a fast break. I love coaching. I probably love coaching the most because you had a lot of camaraderie with the kids and you saw them develop. But as my career took off, I had less and less time for those kind of activities. So that's how I got into refereeing. And what's exciting about refereeing, I think, is that you've got a front row seat to all the action. And I enjoy the competition and being on the field and feeling the competition. So as these playoff games materialize, or just a good game during the season, it's just so much fun to be doing those kind of games. Some of the other attributes I like is staying in shape. And I always tell people, we need to don't run to get to be an official. Run to be an official. I think I got that backwards, but be in shape before the season starts, not during the season, and your body will appreciate that a lot more. And the other thing I enjoy is just it's springtime, the weather's getting better, and it's just a great activity to be out doing during the lacrosse season. And then the other thing I really enjoy is just seeing all the great players over the years, watching guys like the Maltz brothers. I was just having some beers the other night with some people that I knew from scouts, and they went to Penn State, and they brought up Evan Royster. And I just remember what a great lacrosse player he was and just how athletic he was. So seeing that over the years has just, been a lot of fun for me. So I don't know if anybody wants to throw in their thoughts or anything like that. I don't want me just to be going off here. So if you've got some other things to add, please feel free. Some of the memorable experiences I've had over the years, obviously is doing a state championship with Scott Price and Corey and Sandy McRae. I remember a few years back with St. Germain and Peter Buchanan, we refereed over at Georgetown Prep. They were number 1 in the country, and LaSalle was number 5, a team out of Philadelphia. So that was kind of neat. That was being written up in a lot of publications at the time and things. So those are kind of some fond memories. I remember doing a game in 1991. It was over at Oakton High School, and I was late in the game, and I was really suffering from calf cramps, and I could barely run. And this guy comes out of the stands and says, "Hey, let me help you out. I'll signal like if the ball goes out of bounds, and you won't have to run as much." And so that was my first experience meeting Marty Joyner. So, it's kind of neat to see, we talk about full circle and things like that. I had actually coached his brother, Scotty, some at Oakton. And, Marty's a guy I know that just is passionate about lacrosse. And it's just fun, working with guys like that. So those are some of the experiences that I recall. There was one way back with Dennis Stewart. And, it was funny because we're doing Robinson Lake Braddock, and he was probably just a couple of years removed from Lake Braddock. And I'm not sure if Pete's on the call. He might have been in the game, or even Dave Tybel, but it was a tightly contested game. Late in the game, I think there's 1 goal differential, and Lake Braddock takes a bounce shot at the goal. Dennis's GLE, the net pops up, and he signals goal, and I'm looking, and the ball is rolling out the end line. And I'm thinking to myself, how can this be a goal if the ball is rolling out the end line? So I kind of run down and I'm like, Dennis, the ball's on the end line. And I said, if you can show me a hole in the net, then we'll call it a goal. But I think you saw the goalie stick hit the net and it's no goal. So we like searched the goal and we're looking for a broken pipe or a hole in the net, and we couldn't find one. So he wasn't happy about it, but we said no goal. And Steve Price was the coach at Lake Braddock at the time. And about 2 weeks later, he says, "Oh, I got video confirmation. That was a goal." And I said, "Well, just share it with me. I'd love to see it." And every year for 30 years, whenever I'd see Steve, he'd say, "I got video confirmation," but to this day, I've never seen the video. So I think the call was right. So sometimes you got to make the big call or the right call, and just make that call. And another story, real quick, is don't call undue attention to yourself as an official. And I remember I was doing a game with another official. I won't mention his name, but we were doing Broad Run at Oakton, and Broad Run was a pretty physical team. I think their football team had won the state championship that fall. They had a couple guys playing, so we'd had a couple of unnecessary roughness calls, and this is like in the second period, and he's got to play on for Broad Run, and they pick it up and we go play off. Everything I thought was good, but the fans are making all this noise, and all of a sudden the ref blows the whistle, stops, and turns to the stands and ejects the entire stands. And I was had my back to the home team, the bench side, or excuse me, the visitors team, and the coach is saying, "What's going on?" And I'm like, "I think my partner is throwing everybody out." And sure enough, we had to stop the game for about 10 minutes and everybody left. The interesting thing too was that this game was on the local cable TV game of the week. And I was just like, oh my God. But after the game, I went back and watched the video of the game, and the announcers were like, "Oh, I think the officials are ejecting some fans. Oh, they're ejecting the entire stands." And then they were like, "Oh, it must have been a sportsmanship issue. And, good for the refs for doing that, if that was the case." So it was kind of an embarrassing moment, but, I was telling the other official, we're supposed to not call attention to ourselves. And a better way to handle that might've been to tell the coach and have that person or persons removed. But it was kind of an interesting experience. So, and over the years, I've seen the rules evolve, the high hits. I think those are great rules. These are kids, they got a bright future ahead of them. They don't need to be suffering concussions and things like that. And, my feeling is if it's an accident, it's 2 minutes these days. If it's three, deliberate, it's going to be 3. And if the player's really injured, whether it be a concussion or some other injury, that player ought to be ejected. And I think we're doing a good job of calling that. So, but now it seems like the rules committee has gone from the big head to the little head. And my wife's kind of gotten a kick out of all these cup stories I tell. But, a couple of years ago, I think I was at McLean, and maybe Gary Krause was there. But anyways, this kid gets whacked in the crotch, and he's laying on the ground just yelling, "My dick, my dick." And we all were like biting our tongues, trying not to laugh. And the female trainer comes out and she was trying not to laugh. But I think the rules committee had seen maybe too many of these kind of incidences, and now, wants everybody to wear a cup. So earlier in the year, I'm doing a game over at Westfield, and Phil Palazzati is talking about how he handled that whole cup situation. So he has his teams break into 2 lines and face each other and whack each other in the crotch. And he said the first couple of days, he had about 3 or 4 guys that dropped to their knees. And by about the 3rd practice, they got the message. And so they all started wearing a cup. So, it can be humorous, but it's a good safety issue. And recently Gary Krause, or excuse me, Gary Sauer and Ian Sauer and I were doing a game, and a kid took a shot right to the crotch. Uh, and as he went down, he kind of grabbed his crotch and the ball simultaneously, and then he fell to the ground and the ball dropped out. And we were all kind of laughing to ourselves as we're discussing the situation. Do we call, illegal, improper equipment, illegal touching, withholding the ball? And so in the end, we actually went AP because the ball was loose. We blew it dead while the ball was loose and went the other way. But so for me, it's just try to find a little humor in the game. I didn't mean to find humor at the kids' expense, but those are just some of the stories recently that I've had. And so basically in closing, I just want to say that, I love the game. I love working with the guys. Be human when you're talking to coaches. I always say to coaches now, thank you for coaching. And a lot of them look at me kind of funny, like, and then they're like, wow, thank you. I really appreciate that. And the other thing, I just remind them that during the course of the game, if they've got a question, if they're calm and professional, we're happy to address it and talk about it. And that, makes it so much better for everybody. So that's kind of really all I got. I just want to, again, thank everybody for having been doing this now 36 plus years. I've really enjoyed working with everybody. It's just been a great time, and it's a great group of guys to be around and working with.
Yeah, thanks, Dave. I think everybody would agree that you're one of our most consistent and most even keel officials. How did you not get on that emotional roller coasters that so many of us struggle with from time to time?
Yeah, I guess a couple of things, because as a coach, I was kind of a hothead, and, I would always lay into the officials, and, I didn't like a lot of calls. And I think a lot of coaches would rather have less calls than more calls. And I think a couple of things. One, I'd watch NFL officials, and, they're almost robotic. They just make the call. They don't get all, at least when you're making a call, you just see them very calm, very collective. And so I started, trying to take that approach. And really, I think it's, setting the tone early in the game. Again, like thanking a coach, just being approachable, being human. We're playing a game, so let's all have fun. Kids got to have fun. Coaches have to have fun. Officials, if you're not having fun, why do this? So, and the other thing is, I think it just comes with experience. So for newer officials, as you get more games under your belt, you'll be more confident. And when you're more confident, you'll be more relaxed, and things will slow down for you. But yeah, I don't get too worked up anymore about it. I don't mind even the coaches that kind of have reputations for being hotheads. I really don't mind doing their games, because I typically don't have too many issues with them. So just have fun.
I think that's a good point too. It's amazing how, if we can approach coaches and we can de-escalate, that they'll usually follow us down. And that's almost always the case. So that's a good point.
Yeah. And that's something really, probably one of my mentors was a guy named John Natale back in '86. And I think, Marty, did you ever meet John Natale?
Yeah. Well, I was coaching at Robinson, and he was teaching at Robinson at the time. So
okay,
he was still there. Yeah.
Yeah. So he was really he had a lot of it. He had, I think, officiated on Long Island, and he was a Fairfax County teacher. He was kind of a teddy bear of a guy. He had this baritone voice, and he could make calls in the simplest English language, but you knew exactly what the call was. And the other thing that he did so well was, what he taught me was, hey, if you see something, try to go with the technical if you can. Then both coaches are happy. One coach is happy that he didn't get a minute, and the other coach is happy that he got, a 30-second call. And, that's all part of game management. And I didn't really want to talk about, those kind of things, game management. We got a lot of senior guys that know all those things, but he was just a great mentor, easygoing guy. I never saw him, with ruffled feathers at all.
Yeah, he was very mellow. And for those of you who don't know, I got my coaching start around here in '88, first head coaching job in '90. And then, moved on through there. And I think Dave brought up a good point too. The roster was so small that you knew everybody, and we all wound up at the same bars, kind of like the way it would be over at Robinson with Bryant's. And now that we're all so spread out and we're disconnected, throw COVID into it, and we've all become even more disconnected than we ever were before. It really takes away from that personal, touch to get to know each other. And that really did solve a lot of problems back in the day. We truly were on the same team. We all kind of played together in the adult leagues.
Yeah.
And that was, something that was, we just all felt like we were part of the same thing.
Yeah.
I was thinking back to the Oakton game, and it was a big rivalry. It was Oakton Madison is what it was. And I'm trying to remember it because it was my brother versus, and I forget the kid's name. Was it Seaman? Bobby Seaman.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
It was? Yeah, the Seaman family. So that was like a massive game. Even that Oakton Madison game was huge way back then. It's been such an arch rival.
Yeah.
I will throw in here just, and I'm sure a lot of us, some of the old timers know who you're talking about with regards to kicking people out of the stands. And for those of you who are wondering, you can't do that. All right. That's actually got to be an administrative thing. So if you do have a problem that you think you have to kick everybody out, that's one of those we're going to refuse to play until this person or all those people are gone. All right. But I think we do realize that when we played during, I don't know, we didn't have any fan situations last year, did we? Were fans in the games? I forgot.
Yeah, I think
we had fans last year, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. I forget what the rules were, but it was just family or something like that. I think it was a little bit smaller. Everybody's popping all the names of all the guys that have officiated over the years. So, but it's, it has evolved. The technology has really helped. I remember when I first started helping Saint do it, we had just gotten into sign by web, which is what the college officials use. And it was so archaic, even as early level software. I remember Pete and I would sit around and look at it, try to figure it out. And, just how we've changed. And now things have changed a lot. Turf fields have really helped a lot too, right? We don't have to.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
That calculations and the makeups.
As
right?
far as being in my 60s now, and I'm doing some middle school games on grass, and I am sore the next day. In turf, I feel like I can run, not all day, but a lot better. And and then the fields that we had back in the day, they were really just dirt fields. There hardly was any grass on them. So that's been a big help for as far as your health and things like that. And
there's a lot.
Go ahead.
There's a lot made of the sportsmanship issue, right? That's what everybody's talking about. We're losing officials because, bad sportsmanship, all that. Taking sort of a 30,000 foot view with all of the time that you've got, do you feel like it's gotten dramatically worse?
No. I don't. I think one of the things is, and I think it's in all officiating, if we can get officials past that third year, the likelihood that they're going to stick around is much better. So, I really, and I tell you, when I have young guys on my crew now, I'm like thanking them for being out there. And I said, if you have a bad day, call me. I want to talk to you, because we really need these guys to stick with it, have fun. And that's why I emphasize having fun as a crew, because if we're not having fun, then what is the point? And, I think it's important. I think one thing though, in the old days, and I kind of do this now during the regular season. I know you don't advocate for it, but I'll usually go shake both coaches' hand and then get out of there. And I know during the playoffs, someone's season's ending that night, and if it's a close game, you probably don't want to be doing that. But I think during the course of the year, and if anything, I found coaches to be more open this year. I don't know whether it's because of COVID and we're kind of back, or, it seems like a lot of teams are struggling to even field teams. The competition doesn't seem, as deep as it's been in the past. And I know probably we lost a year or two there with COVID, but, I think being an ambassador to the game, being an official, you want to be approachable. And that's actually something I wanted to mention was, You know, if you have an opportunity out on the field, a kid that has a nice goal, you know, and you're not in front of all the other players of the opposite team, you know, tell the kid, hey, nice goal, nice shot. You know, if you see an attackman or a pull up on a hit, you know, or an attackman chasing a guy over the, you know, trying to get him before he hits the line and they hold up. If you got an opportunity during the game to say, hey, thank you for holding up on that. And those kind of things, the kids, they're like, wow, you're a human, you know? And I think those kind of things go a long way. You know, asking a coach right before the second half, do you have anything for us? You know, whatever. The more we can be humans and interact, you know, we're not going to bend over backwards, but I think just to show that you're human, you're approachable, I think that goes a long way to helping us, you know, do our job out on the field.
Yeah, and there's been so much made of it, and I think about, you know, you'd said you were rough on officials. I certainly was. A lot of people were, but I don't know that it's that much different than it was before. Maybe the parent and fan behavior. I think we sort of got lucky for a while because a lot of parents didn't really know the game. So they didn't know what necessarily they were yelling at. Now everybody knows what they're talking about and every kid's going to get a college scholarship. So,
yeah,
I mean, if you don't mind me saying, I think an area where we see it the most is in the youth. I think that the parents and the youth are a lot more vocal than they used to be when we were younger. And I think that makes it difficult on some of the younger officials because they, you know, people are 5 feet away from you instead of being up in the stands. So, because I had this weekend and we had to settle them down.
Yep.
Yeah, I agree. And when I do youth games, I sometimes will put a less experienced guy on the bench side and run because the parents are on the other side of the field and they're usually right on the field. So it's very easy to hear their comments. And I think for younger guys, I'll ask them like, which side do you want to run on? I don't care if they stay, you know, bench side the whole time. And run by the parents, whatever I can do to shield them so they can focus on what they're doing and not get too rattled. You know, that's kind of where I go as a crew chief. I think the youth games can be a lot tougher than the high school games. And you got, you know, coaches that maybe don't always know the rules or they remember the rules when they played and they've changed and they're not up on them. You know, and kids aren't as disciplined. So I think those games can be a lot tougher for younger officials.
Yeah, there are some thoughts out there on how to manage it. There, you know, when you take a step back and you think about, okay, what is the psychology that is so different right now? We've got to somehow address this before the season starts, and maybe there's a way to, you know, through electronics like a Zoom call or get everybody in the same place. You know, for those of you, you know, who haven't been around, one of the things that we used to do in the preseason, Dave, you'll remember this, we would always have sportsmanship night at Annandale High School. Yeah. And all the officials, all the coaches, and all the players from all over the region would show up and sit in the auditorium, and there would be a few speeches, you know, about the fact that, hey, this is just a game. You're all on the same team. You know, all the standard mantras that we all talk about. And for some reason, that gets lost on the youth parents. And by design, with the players over or the parents on the far side of the field, there's no buffer, right? They're not behind the coaches, so the coaches don't have the ability to control them, maybe like they might in a high school game. So it's a tough environment, but we do have to figure out a way to figure it out.
Yeah. Yeah, that'd be good. You know, having something like that come back, you know, again, I think anytime that the more we can interact with parents, players, coaches, you know, that's a good thing because I think the more they know, then the more they realize they really don't know what they're talking about. And they need to, you know, like I'll tell parents, you know, cheer your team on. Same with coaches, you know, coach, and we'll worry about the game. I don't mind taking some criticism because sometimes, you know, you have to say, yeah, I might have missed that call, or I was screened off, and I just say thanks for bringing it to my attention, and we'll be aware of it. Yep. And I think again, it's just how you deflect. You know, if you're resentful, then they pick that up and then they start pounding on you. And if you just acknowledge them, and you know, that's all. They just want to be heard a lot of times. So
right. No doubt.
Yeah.
So, all right. Anybody else have any questions for Dave? I know a lot of us have been around a long time with him, so been carrying the torch like he has. So
yeah. I think Lou's probably. I think he worked with Sheckel's group. I don't know. He's probably been doing it.
Yeah, Lou was here, right? Then moved out of the area and then came back. right? That's your story, right, Lou?
Yeah. Yeah. I started with Tommy in 81, right after I got out of Maryland. I
Yeah.
think there were 14 people. His meetings were the same. It would go to his house over by Catholic University and sit down in his back room. Tommy hand wrote every schedule, and he would staple them together, and we'd sit there, drink a beer, reviewing schedules and tearing off sheets and giving it to different people. But back then it was nice, man. No 1099s. You got to check at the end of the year. It was fun. Even some got cash on the field.
Oh yeah. Yeah. Anything that
Uh,
wasn't under a school system, you got cash on the field back in the day. Yeah.
Yeah.
Anybody who didn't work with Tom, he was an incredible mentor. I mean, he sat down with you during the game. You know, at halftime, you'll sit on the bench, and he'll walk through the game and why'd you do this and what were you thinking here, and just make you think through everything. As a new official, it was great because, you know, watching the game and being on the field is such a different thing. And the first couple of years are so hard to really get your balance.
Yeah, that's an interesting point. I think I actually I can't even remember, but I think I refereed 1 year, and then the next year I took the year off because I was like, I don't know if I like this stuff. And then, then I realized, hey, it's important to have good officials. I know the game. I have less time, so let me get back into it. And I think that's, we might see that with some of our guys, and maybe it's worth reaching out to some of the guys that did referee that for whatever reason stopped doing it, try to get them back in. But it's for some people, it's hard being out there and getting criticized. And I think the guys that know the game and love the game, they just move on, and you're like a duck and water rolls off your back, and it's next game. And actually, I get a lot of my crews. We tend, and whether it be a young bunch of guys or not, I feel like we do a great job overall. And I have parents. I always get nervous when a parent's approaching a parking lot, but usually it's like, hey, that was a great game, or you did a great job moving the game along, or something. It's very rarely do I get negative comments. So hopefully everybody else has similar kind of experiences.
Now, I'll be perfectly honest with you. And a lot of people fall into this category, but I have never gotten a comment about you at all from anybody. So and that's a good thing, right? No news is good news.
Yeah,
As far
yeah,
as,
exactly.
and it seems like, most of us have had somebody, contact, I've been contacted by a lot of people, that you guys would never know that contact me, but I've actually never been contacted by anybody that's that you've officiated. So it's nice when, again, we struggle with that whole thing. Are we supposed to fade in the background? Are we supposed to be out there? And I think officiating has evolved, and it's hard to figure out where you're supposed to be. And again, when it's about the kids, my pregame speech now is, hey, there's 3 teams on the field, and one of them came here just to watch the game. And if you can keep us out of it, we're happy just to sit back and watch, and you guys can figure it out. And that's what I always hope is the case. But sometimes some games don't let that happen. You have to engage a little bit.
Right. And that's, the game management. You just got to, things start getting a little out of control, just tighten them up. And, I've even stopped games where I've gone to both coaches and said, hey, that's enough, knock it off, and let's play lacrosse. And usually that will, settle everyone down and everybody compose themselves. So, and sometimes you just have to do that. And I guess a lot of that just comes with experience or being around other officials that will do that if need be. But for the most part, we don't really have those problems. I haven't done very many games down in Prince William here lately, so I don't know. I hear stories all the time down that way. But yeah, it's just been a great time. I don't know if I'll read just the 11 guys that were in 86 that I have here. So Scott Brown, Chuck Hammer, Gino Marchetti, myself, John Natale, Craig Pritzker, Paul St. Germain, Dennis Stewart, John Stewart, Seth Ween. And he did mainly any games that we had like in Maryland, and Billy Weicker that was the 11 in 1986. So
there you go. You ought to send me those sheets when you get a chance. We've been meaning to try to put a collective history together, because the group that Lou started under was WALOA, Capital Area.
Right.
And then we were NVLOA, right? And then there was PLOA, and then we're WALOA. So we're really all part of the same thing. But, it's interesting looking at how we've all kind of migrated into different spots, and now we cover, quite the same area. It's just evolutionary, and,
Yeah.
and we've and there are more steps that have to be taken. We're constantly talking about it behind the scenes about what we have to do to grow with the growth. The Winchester area schools are going to come in at some point. Somebody's got to ref them.
Right.
Hampton Roads area is all going varsity next year, so I'm working some statewide stuff with them. So it's interesting to see how it just keeps going. But
Yeah.
I'd rather drive to Winchester than Gainesville.
yeah, really, it might be an easier drive, right? Yeah, it is interesting. Depending
Yeah,
on
at least down in Tidewater, you got like a lot of private schools that play, and
Right.
maybe there's some nucleus there for officials down there.
Yeah, they've got a group of about 20, and they're getting close. We get a weekly. I get a weekly call or email from Richmond or Charlottesville. Can you help us with this? Can you help us here? And I'm like, no, we're pretty much in the same boat you are.
Yeah.
So everybody's having to kick around games. We've been close. We've had to request a few reschedules here or there and massage a few things, but we generally get it to work. Rob's covered a fair amount of 2-man games this year down in Prince William as a result of it. So, but
Yeah.
that's where we are. I think once we get our routine of recruiting and stuff back, I think we'll be okay. Once we get those dad refs, a lot of dad refs out there. That's who.
Yeah, no, that's great.
A lot of our base came from that.
I see
And,
John is on here, and I didn't know if I'm John DeDura. I didn't know if I mentioned, but you joined in 1994 with Pete Stewart. I think I did, but if not, John, if you have any ideas or thoughts, I think you're kind of spearheading recruiting, but I'd love to hear ideas because I think that's something I might want to get more involved in to try to help out because I feel like I need to find my replacement as we age out here.
We have to start thinking like younger people and realize they're not looking at job ads and on email and stuff. They're on social media,
right?
All those kind of things, and really sell the avocation and realize that it's not as much about money today as it is that camaraderie. And we really have to. We don't. One of the things that I've talked to the board about is that we don't necessarily have any community standing. And maybe that's something we need to do. We need to look at offering scholarships for our high school officials and be a little bit more involved with sportsmanship awards for the schools and things that make us more of a part of the community, as opposed to just a quick little service provider. Hey, we're wham bam, thank you, ma'am, give us our check, we're out.
Right.
And that's the way people see us right now. They see us as just an expensive part of the game, and we make more than anybody else involved in the game in most situations. So that's just the way the game works.
Right.
With the exception of indoor facilities and now the turf field. So they've gotten quite expensive too. So it is very difficult to put on a game with today's economics the way they are.
Yeah.
But yeah, definitely. I'm sure John would love to have you. And then we got Ken Fry with his hand raised intentionally, I think. Are we, Ken?
Yes, thank you. I'm pretty much new to lacrosse. I've been officiating other sports. So during a pregame session with the head coach at Robinson, me and the referee, he offered me the fact that he knows so many players outside of graduated from college. His players, he knew a lot of players who have already graduated in college, and he thought it'd be a great idea to email them. So I think that maybe if we contact our coaches, because they have a great network of ex-players and after college, and they may need some work. So I thought that would be my suggestion. I don't know how we do that, but I thought the head coach had a good idea.
Yeah, we generally do with the information that we're given, but tap it into those guys. One of the problems in the DC area is that a lot of our kids leave and don't come back. So we know that through our junior program, that very few of those officials actually come back to become adult officials for us. They wind up being great officials elsewhere, which is fine. So hopefully we pick up a few that come to the DC area. The transient nature of this area doesn't always help with that kind of stuff. Takes people some time to find us. So we need to get out on LinkedIn and a lot of those kind of things, which we're on. But again, we just need to be more active in that process. So we really did, believe it or not, 2 years ago in 2019, we had a surplus of officials. I had more people complaining they were not getting enough games than people complaining they were working too much. and had to make some real decisions, you know, in 2018, 19 about certain guys that were just at the bottom of the spectrum and maybe shouldn't be working high school games with what we had available. We had people only working JV games, but that's not where we are right now. I think I just looked at the numbers. I think 88 total to cover Virginia, and we were at about 112 in 2019. So it's about 20%, which is what most associations in all sports have been reporting across the board, about a 20% decline in what they had. So we're just fortunate that we had a pretty good base to start with. But still, we're having to, you know, Bobby's probably more so than any other year relying heavily on the guys out of Virginia to cover games up on the Maryland side with regards to the private schools. So, you know, we're working it. We're finding a way to get it done, but definitely the more the merrier, right? You can't have enough.
Right.
We are what it is. So, well, Dave, thanks so much for some of the insight. I think the history is good for other people to hear. We don't sit around and share stories enough. You know, that's what all this is about. I mean, we're out there making money. Yeah, we're out there refereeing the game, but it's about relationships. It's just another excuse, you know, to make a new set of friends and acquaintances. And that's why we do almost everything we do in life. So
It's
Yeah.
also getting a beer after the game to review.